This panel is titled In the Beginning. My name is Gregory Dauer. I'm the moderator today for this first panel. I'd just like to say I'm very grateful. There's a sense of gratitude within me to be here in this venue with so many pioneers, visionaries, so many passionate advocates regarding industrial hemp. And I want to say that I'm thankful for all the people as well who are now gone, who looked forward and envisioned this day that we're all living. And I'm thankful that I felt many of their presences in my life, and I'm sure you have for several of them as well. So many amazing tangible items today: hemp auto parts, hemp houses, all manner of food products. The people on this panel, I hope, will bear witness to history, speak to your own personal truth, things that we want to remember, that we don't want forgotten from the historical record. What first ignited that spark of interest in hemp for everybody on this panel? I first found out about hemp at the dawn of the 90s. I think many people in this audience will recognize what this is. This is a hemp stalk, but for me, this is not just any hemp stalk. This was given to me in 1991 in Madison, Wisconsin, by the great hemp advocate Ben Mazzell. And him giving it to me, I don't really feel like he was passing on the torch, but it's something that I hold on to, and that I feel the power from. I really do. Anytime in the early days I first held a hemp product, I felt it was like a portal to the past, as well as the author Chris Conrad said, a lifeline to the future. So again, I hope you think about the people who made a difference in your life today, and we'll hear from our panelists today regarding this topic. And our first panelist is Star-Haeske. Now, she's with Envirotextiles, which is bringing elegance to hemp and getting it out in the fashion industry, in the fashion world. And she's also current board member of the Hemp Industries Association. So please welcome Star.
Hello, good afternoon, NoCo, and welcome. Here we are making history every day, and especially Colorado leading the way for the U.S. So this is an exciting time that many of us have been working towards for a very long time as well. I think it's important where hemp does start for everyone. And for me, of course, I was just a little kid who had a passionate, talented mother that had been a fashion designer who started standing up for human rights in India and other countries where the conditions were not very great, and kind of said, you know what, I'm done with the big fashion apparel world, and I'm going to start focusing on some more sustainable and healthy wares and what's out there and available. And she had created one of the first high-end hemp fashion lines back in the early 90s. And you can see this was way ahead of its time back then. And this piece is 100% Romanian hemp that was cut and sewn in Romania, but then brought here to Colorado to be natural dyed right in Longmont. And back then, Longmont had one of the only vegetal dye facilities, and they ended up finding out that hemp was so cellulosic that it actually clogged the entire sewer lines of Longmont. And they got in big trouble and had to kind of come up with some new adaptive ways, and really had done some cutting edge looks, and really started to hit the marketplace. And so back in the early 90s, really in the 70s is when hemp started to kind of make its wave in the US. And it was a lot of people that were part of the rainbow gatherings and these more natural group movements that had found out about hemp and that you could eat it and wear it and all these wonderful things. And they're really the ones that kind of started to bring hemp into the marketplaces to some of these festivals and events. And as people got their eyes on it and went, wow, what can we do with that? And let's really kind of bring this to a new level. So that's where my mother came in, and she was headhunted to send off to Romania to create the first fashion apparel lines, which led into, I think by 1991, when the first Ecolution brand had hit the market, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. And again, it was very much ahead of its time where people were going, there's no way this is hemp, or what's hemp? So, here I was a child, and Colorado actually had the very first initiatives for industrial hemp after the prohibition in the U.S. So I was 10 years old sitting in those Senate hearings at the Denver Capitol. And way back then, we only lost by 1 vote. So, it's kind of a wild situation when you start to think, well, gosh, it just took so long to finally get here. But now that we're here, it is happening, and it's every day striding to, further our abilities with our own farmers, with producing here. And something I really always like to say is, one of our mottos here in the U.S. should be hemp for our farmers, hemp for our workers, and hemp for healthy products for us. And then hemp to get us back on the global exchange, because the rest of the world is utilizing hemp and they want our hemp, but we've got to provide it. So, by the mid-90s, in 92, 93, we had opened one of the nation's first hemp shops. And one of the reasons for that was because we had all these wonderful product lines, but not enough buyers. So, of course, Mom's going, we got to open a store to sell this stuff. And we had one of the nation's first hemp shops in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is a wonderful place to obviously get to a lot of tourism. So we really made an impact there. We still have people call today going, I wandered in that little store in Glenwood Springs, and you had to have been 12 years old, and I saw a leaf and went to turn around and walk out of there, and you made me stop and talk to you, and it changed my life towards hemp. So, by 96, we were making the cover of Denver Post with Hemp Fashion, Aspen Times. It really was kind of in that first phase of really becoming something that more household names recognize. So, there's been quite the history, and today we're still home-based in Colorado. We've got a big facility in Glenwood Springs, an office in California, offices in China, East Sussex, all over the place. So it is available. It's out there. There's something for everyone. There's no reason to not choose hemp anymore. And of course, there's so many benefits to it, and it's very important to really get educated on those, to understand why it's so important for us, and all those wonderful adherent natural marketing benefits that you can share with your customers or create the next niche product. So I will pass it on here.
Okay.
Chris Boucher, are you here? Paige and Chris? We have a chair for you. Are the slides ready? Tech, in the beginning, _rr.ppt.
And this is Richard Rose, our panelist today.
Yeah. Yeah, but I got up at 6 this morning and spent 2 hours doing these slideshows, so I would really like to do them. So let's pass it on to Mr. Alan Dronkers from HempFlax, SensiSeeds in the Netherlands, and come back to this.
Good morning, everybody. Well, this is quite a historical moment, sitting here with Dan Harrer and Adam. And also, Richard, we go back a long way. We've met first, I think, but it's so wonderful to see people that are working already on this. in the beginning of the 90s. In fact, we were really at the beginning of the 90s when your father, Jack, came to visit us in Holland. We decided to do hemp. We started to grow hemp, process hemp, harvest hemp. And we are still there. In fact, our factory has been running like crazy. Since 2013, our machines are running 24 hours, 7 days a week. There is some periods that it's shut down for maintenance, but we can sell fibers to the car industry, automotive industry. So it's a good chance if you buy a BMW or a Mercedes that there's hemp from Holland inside. So we're very proud that we got this far. But what you have to understand is this. It was your father that inspired us, okay? We were already, we had a museum. We still have a hash and marijuana hemp museum in Amsterdam. Another one we opened in Barcelona. But the whole mission was this. We said to Jack, if it's not possible in the US, let's start here. Let's make hemp happen, put it on the map. So it can be an example for the rest of the world. And not only that, we can learn what the markets are, how to do it, and how to make it real. And then, in the future, when it opens up, it becomes legal in the US, we have the experience, we have the knowledge of how to put it on the map for hemp to stay. So, that's why I'm here, at your service, and hoping to establish hemp in America as a real industrial crop, the way it has to be and it should be. So I want to thank you all.
Alan, it's amazing history. Didn't HempFlax first start off with horse betting?
Yes, the thing was, of course, we had to learn. We were the first doing this thing, and we didn't have a clue yet of how our markets would develop. So that's also why it's so important to talk about markets here and development of markets. So if hemp industry is really initiated, that it will not take as much time as it took for us. So yes, we were selling horse betting first. That was our first product, right?
And how did you get from horse betting to automobile parts, or?
That took a lot more time. In fact, I was just explaining to somebody else that, okay, we had so many hectares in 1994 and then 2,000 hectares in 1995. And then suddenly in 1996, we were sitting on the top of a mountain of fibers and we didn't have a customer. We didn't have nobody to sell these fibers to. But we were selling our wood, our product, our horse betting was doing really well. Even today, we sell it to the royal stables of Denmark. So yes, the animal betting, out of all the tests, it is the best product. Okay, so there we had a real potential for market. Even though the price from hemp is more expensive than straw, but it's got all these positive things why it saves people a lot of work and money and time. So that's why hemp wins. That's what you have to find here also, is your markets where hemp wins. The same thing for the automotive industry. They're not buying our fibers because it's hemp. They not even advertise it. Why? Because they don't buy it because it's hemp. They buy it because it's cheaper. Yes, it's more lightweight, so they save weight on the car. And it's more safe when a car comes into an accident because the components, the composites, do not break and get sharp edges like it happens with glass fiber components. So you have to find your markets and build on them. But what happened to us with these 5,000 tons of fiber that we were sitting on? Let me finish that story because it happened, okay? Then suddenly one day we get an order from a paper company far away in Turkey that were making cigarette paper out of hemp fiber. So we filled up a whole boatload with 2,000 tons of hemp, okay? These numbers are really difficult. I cannot explain how many millions of pounds that is, but a whole ship full went to Turkey and they made cigarette paper. So for us it was also really funny because in the end, they smoked our hemp.
And just so people are aware, what year was that?
Sorry?
What year was that?
This was in 1996.
Okay.
So, and then slowly we started to get the first orders out of Germany, where certain companies that are providing materials to the automotive industry were started to produce these composites made with hemp fiber and injection molding resins, which is used in many automobiles in Europe at the moment. So, but also that market developed very, very slowly. It was not that right away that we could sell thousands of tons. And again, if you're talking about the hemp industry, you're talking about, last year we produced this number I know in pounds, okay? 77.2 million pounds of hemp straw that we processed, okay? We processed also 3.8 million pounds of flax, by the way. And not last year, but before we even were processing nettle. We are processing canaf next year. So there's a lot that we're doing. We've been really active since we said to Jack, let's do this. We never, ever could have realized ourselves, not even the biggest dream, how big this thing really is. And even Adam was there. We were there at the start. Jack came to visit us in SensiSeeds and the Hash Museum. Adam was working with me. So we went through this time of excitement about hemp, and it changed our lives. It made us decide to do this thing. And really, I'm here to try and help. So hemp can succeed here also, because there is these markets. Just it takes time and development. And also, the nice thing is, we've got harvest machinery, processing machinery. We paid a lot of learning money, so we can avoid that certain people will have to reinvent the wheel again. So this is a mission. So I'm here because of your father, and I'm here because the time is now. This time was not there before, so I want to congratulate you all that hemp is finally possible in the United States and here in Colorado. Are you ready, or I'm going to pass it over to Adam?
Let's say no. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Somewhere down the line, they're going to show you the HempFlax video also with all the big machinery, and it's really big. It's, you know, even now, if I'm there, I'm always amazed by the size of all the machines on the field, but also the processing lines. It takes a lot of investment and a lot of work, but hemp is possible, and hemp is here to stay.
Thank you, Alan. So to reintroduce myself, I guess, Adam Dunn from Hoodlab clothing, also TH-Seeds. But if we're talking about the beginning, I need to go much further back than that. As Alan alluded to, that we used to work together, and I actually went to Amsterdam in 1989 as a 19-year-old kid, figuring out that was my future. When I got there, I said, okay, well, that's it. This is the spot. And you know, I have to say, like, also, I think everybody here is inspired by Jack. I had like a really wrinkled, dirty edition of Jack's book that I'd carried literally around the world. I'd sailed across the ocean from Fort Lauderdale to England, and during that trip drove everybody on that boat crazy because all I talked about was growing cannabis and hemp and the possibilities, and they just were like, well, why are you on a boat? You can't do any of this stuff on a boat, you know? And I was like, you're right, I think I'll get off the boat, and literally got off the boat in England, and at that exact spot there was a ferry that went over to Amsterdam, so I thought, well, that's gonna have to happen right there. So I got on that ferry, went across to Amsterdam, and like I said, I pretty much set my roots there. And I went to this coffee shop all the time called Homegrown Fantasy. And the reason I went there was because it was one of the few shops that grew their own and didn't import anything. So it was all kind of like what I was looking for, you know? So I would hang out at the shop, and I took Jack's book at one point, and because I realized that there's nothing to do at these places. You sit there and you talk to people and you play chess or whatever. So, and there's nothing in English to read. And I just went, okay, I'll take Jack's book and I'll start photocopying bits out of it and kind of break it down and put it into a new album, and like a photo album. And so the guy who owned the shop, his name was Henk van Dalen, and he owns Dutch Passion Seeds. And quite honestly, he saw my passion. He saw the fact that I really liked hemp and that I was interested in it. So he said, my friend owns the Hash Museum. Maybe I can get you a job over there. So I was like, sure. And we literally walked a few blocks away, went in. And I'd have to say, I didn't really get welcomed right off the bat because of the fact that I was American. And at that point in time, Alan's father didn't really like Americans very much. They weren't the greatest people to be dealing with.
Operation Green Merchant time. I don't know if you know, but there was a lot of refugees in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought I was a refugee, but I wasn't. I just got out before I got in trouble. I realized if I had stayed in America, I probably would have had a different future. But so he brought me over there, and I fell in pretty quick. I'm a quick learner, but I realized that the museum was really focused on hash, and it was focused on weed, and it was focused on like smuggling and history of growing and things like that. There was a little bit about hemp, but not a lot. And I was doing the same exact thing that I did over there. I started photocopying. I went down, made some copies, printed them in color to make them look a little more interesting, and framed them up and put them out. And it wasn't very long after, maybe 6 months to a year after, less than a year after, that Jack arrived. And it was like, I was meeting our hero, and the reality was that, like Alan had said, that there wasn't, we were running this place and we were telling people how to do, what this plant can do and all the special things about it, but there was no product out there. There wasn't enough product to prove it, We had these shirts called, what were they called?
Stoneware.
Stoneware shirts. They were the only hemp shirts we had, and they were all right. I mean, for the time, they were actually pretty good. They were like a jean shirt. They lasted quite a long time. Right. I mean, they were actually a pretty damn good product. But that's all we had.
That was our uniform here in Colorado.
Stoneware.
As we were going out there petitioning in the very early 90s.
Sure. And it was like, when you walked people through the museum or when they came on out, that first question they had was, well, where do I get this stuff, And after about a year of being there, a friend of mine who actually, now since Chris is not here, can I call somebody up who's integral to this story? Dion, you want to come up, sit up here with us? Please come up and sit. So this is my original partner of my original company, which was called Cannabis in Amsterdam. And I usually tell the story, but I figure if he's here, he might as well be up on stage with us. So Dion was more the revolutionary, right? I was in Amsterdam because I didn't want to go back to America. I had no intentions of going back to the States. I was there. I was pretty much set. Dion wanted to shake up things a bit. He was more the revolutionary. He actually saw what was going on in America more than I did because like I said, I kind of was like, whatever, I'm out of there. But he was really fighting for it, and he saw that in California was on having their initiatives. He kind of saw the reality. And what was quite interesting was in the beginning when we started the CIA, which was his pretty much he kind of conceptualized the whole thing, and I added the flavor to it, like I would say. And we opened up a shop. I was working for the Hash Museum, and we decided that we were going to open up a shop in town, a hemp store. We did everything against the grain. We didn't do anything like you would normally do. We did not get a ground floor shop like you should. We decided we wanted we didn't decide. It happened just the way it happened. So we ended up with a huge space on the second floor in the center of Amsterdam. So with a sign outside that said Cannabis in Amsterdam, with a CIA logo, with a joint hanging out of the eagle's mouth. So pretty much like if somebody stood there, they were like, are we going to go up these stairs? Because this is kind of weird, right? You see a CIA logo, you're in Amsterdam, come on up the stairs. Many, many people told me over the years that they were terrified. They stood at the bottom of the stairs like, are we really going to go into the CIA and look around for weed seeds? And so we were selling cannabis seeds from SensiSeeds and from Dutch Passion and from pretty much everybody in town that we could. And we became like the expat sort of epicenter of like Rob Clark actually said we were the epicenter of the cannabis universe at that time, and it really felt like it because every day was another cannabis celebrity or new product on the line or something that came out that we never knew what was going to happen. And to make it even more impressive, I'd say, for our time period, considering we're 20-something Americans, like 20-year-old, not 20-something, 20-year-old Americans living in Amsterdam, like, with the making fun of the American government and selling seeds, and we didn't export anything. We did everything in-house, so that was our whole kind of our saving grace, because obviously at that time period they were really out and about looking for it. So exactly. And so what happened was Chris Conrad, who we talked about earlier, who wrote Lifeline to the Future and helped edit Emperor, he was asked by High Times to organize the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam. And Chris is not a real event guy, he's more an editor. So he was like, hey, you guys, you're young. You guys want to do the Cannabis Cup? And we were like, yeah. And Dion actually was there the year before. And he's like, we can do this so much better. Because he saw the reality that it wasn't really an event. It was more of just an excuse for a couple guys from High Times to get over there and get high and write a story. So we were like, no, this is an event. We're going to make this into an event. So we worked on it from July in '93 until November of the Cup. And we basically rented a place, had a big empty space, budget was not a word in our vocabulary. It was like, when people asked us what our budget was, it was always zero, obviously, because we don't have anything. But what we did have was total and utter sort of inspiration of the fact that we were literally every day dealing with, now we're gonna do the Cannabis Cup. We're in Amsterdam, we're organizing the Cannabis Cup, so we said, you know what? We're gonna do a Hemp Expo. And it was actually, everything we did was the first. It was like, hey, it's the first Hemp Expo. Hey.
So, tell us what some of the first products were that you physically touched or wore.
Well, the very first product we had was hats from Hempstead and Chris Boucher, who should be sitting right here, of course. And that was the best quality product out there. That was like something where you really felt, good holding it. And also what was interesting is that we were Americans living in Amsterdam, so we could pull off the baseball hat thing, So we were like, yeah, we got baseball hats, 5 times as expensive as any other baseball hat, but we're going to tell you why you need to have it. And so we managed to make some sales and make some inroads, got the Bulldog and got some of the bigger people on board. But what was really exciting was to see the development of the products that came out and the quality of the products. Like, for instance, and I was trying to remember, what was THC? What was his name, the German guy from THC?
Robert? Drew?
No. Literally they had some of the highest quality hemp at that time. Like, it was beautifully made, Italian, milled. Not the Hempsters, that was the pre one. Yeah, so we basically, the funny part is that Dion at the time, it was only your girlfriend, you weren't married, right? Oh, he's your wife, okay, you were married, okay, so it was official, I wasn't sure. Well, she was a stewardess, so this was awesome. We were like, you know what, Dion, there's a hemp thing going on in San Francisco. Boom, on the plane, fly to San Francisco, load up his bag, bring it back to Amsterdam, fill up the store. That's how we kept our store stocked, was Dion was literally going everywhere and picking up product and bringing it back, and we would just wait and see what happened, and we'd open it up. Some disappointments along the way, that's for sure. I mean, we had to go through the learning curve. We were part of the learning curve. We were the from the bottom to the top, and so what we had to do was promote every product we got because we wanted to sell it because we were a store, but at the same time, some stuff was like sold out the door because it was awesome products, and other stuff you'd be like, well, it's not using it properly, because that's the thing about hemp, like Alan was saying, a lot of people, they'll get this heavyweight canvas sort of stuff and they'll start making shorts out of them, and you're like, these shorts are like, you remember the French guy that used to come? We had a French guy that would come and get material from us and make some really beautiful stuff, but every single time it was like a woman's dress made out of like burlap, you know what I mean? And you're like, it cannot work. You gotta make these things. So, again, like we said, you opened your store in '93. We had the same. We opened up in '93, first hemp store in Europe. Right after us was in Germany. They opened up like 3 from Hanfhaus, and so it was pretty much like popping up everywhere. And I think it was, it's a lot of it's based on the fact that Jack's book took that much time to get into everybody's head, to then get to the point where you actually did something, to then get a product out on the market. And I'm sure there was people who never read Jack's book who actually got into hemp, but I think over 90% of us have, you know what I mean? And it was interesting to see it develop, and it was also interesting to be obviously part of it. But what happened was, for us, was that we had only 2-year opportunity at that spot, which was the CIA. And I think it's been my curse. Every time I go to a place, I make it better, and they sell the building. That's happened to me so many times, and that's kind of what happened to us. They forced us out of the spot. We ended up getting a retail place and becoming a little bit more, mainstream in the sense of having a retail shop. And we started to develop clothing and doing our stuff inside of Amsterdam. So we were doing cut and sew locally with Turkish ateliers and hand delivering the roll and then picking it up and then dropping it off and then bringing zippers and dealing with all that. We did that for about 4 years. And then after that, since the hemp is being grown in China, as far as the hemp that we're using, we needed to close the gap. So we started to do production in China. And if anybody's done production in China, you understand that you're back on the learning curve again now. So you just started we started it again. And I think the reality is because hemp is such a passionate thing, if it was just fashion, it wouldn't be the same thing. We weren't really fashion people. We were guys who wanted to have the best clothing possible. So we really went at it from bang your head against the wall and then move around and go forward. We never did things with, again, we still don't have a budget. We didn't do things with a huge budget. We did things based on passion. And even when Dion and I were back at the CIA, we had rolls of material that we would cut for people. If you wanted a meter of material, no problem, we'll do it. It'd be 100 degrees. We'd be up there struggling, trying to cut this one little piece of material together to run downstairs, take care of a customer. At the end of that roll, every single time we lost money because we were too nice, you know what I mean? We're like, wow, we'll give them a little extra here, a little extra there. And we're like, well, that didn't work out very well. We pretty much lost money on that. So if we looked at the hemp industry as a moneymaker, like a lot of people do, they think this is just the instant moneymaker, they don't understand there's a huge workload. I think everybody here understands that because when I'm selling my clothing to people and they ask me why it's so expensive, it's not that it's that expensive. It's that it's expensive in their mind because they're looking for something. They were just at H&M and they saw something cheaper. Yeah, of course, because material that went into it is cheap, but also that we have to grow our fabric. We don't just order it offline. It's we have to tell the farmers what to grow. We have to plan ahead. There's a lot of planning involved. And our biggest fear back in the day, in 1993, there was a company called Mex. I think they're out here too. And they came to us and we thought we had hit the jackpot. We were on our first year and organic clothing was really hot in '93. Everybody was into it. Mex approached us. We also had the body shop come into our place, and basically before she started her hemp line, she kind of came in to see what was going on. I'm 100%, she didn't come in, she sent somebody in.
That's Anita Roddick.
Yeah, and I'm 100% sure that when they sent somebody in, they were like, these are some stoner guys. You probably don't want to come into their store. So they had sent some scout in, but it was just that we were literally at the source of everything. And most of that was due to the fact that Alan's dad was pushing the envelope with HempFlax, and we were more the retail guys and trying to make things happen, but we ended up becoming the production guys because of the fact that we couldn't find what we wanted. So there's plenty more there, of course. But I'll pass the mic.
Good stuff.
I'll pass the mic though, and also if Dion's got anything else to add to that, maybe you want to add anything?
As Adam says, I'm basically about the revolution, and this event here is like a culmination of this revolution. I mean, I've been saying since 90 whatever, oh yeah, a few years, we're almost there, 5 years, oh, we're almost there. And I still feel like, yeah, this is like, this show sort of put, like we're just over the finish line, it's the end of the beginning. So I'm happy to be here. I've always been about the revolution because I think giving the power to the people and to the farmers is really important in an overall global economic scheme, a more egalitarian society and dispersing power. And, after all these years of being inspired by Jack's book, we're now in the phase of actually doing the things that were presented back then. So it's been a long, painful, slow road, but I'm happy that we're here, and I just hope it's, in time, and I'm excited, and, viva la revolution. Thank you.
All right, now we'll hear from Dan Harrer, whose dad, Jack Harrer, wrote The Emperor Wears No Clothes, multiple hemp tours across the United States that brought information to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. As a matter of fact, how many people here, if we get a show of hands, first heard about hemp due to Jack Harrer or his book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes? That's a healthy amount of people. So please, let's hear it from Dan.
Hi, good morning. How are y'all doing today? Well, my name is Dan Harrer, and like any child associated with the cannabis or hemp movement or businesses during our adolescence, let me speak for myself. I wasn't an activist. I never wanted to be when I was a kid. I was free labor. And when I got out of high school, it was my friends and myself and anybody else that we could talk to every 4 years when there was initiative to be voted on, that it was our duty, at least as far as my father thought, that it was our duty to go out and collect signatures. I never was involved in a hemp business per se, just always around it. My father was pretty intense presence in the early 70s for me. And, like most kids, I rebelled. And it wasn't until I started smoking cannabis that I started feeling a little bit of his passion for the injustices that seem to be enveloping the planet, not just the United States, but how unfair things were. So my introduction to the world of activism and education was always being like the preacher's kid or the professor's son. And it wasn't really a choice for us. It just became part of who and what our futures were. And I'm sure Alan and Summer probably had the same issues with wanting to break away and not necessarily be part of it, but it was still sort of cool during the 80s and 90s when people were recognizing what hemp and cannabis was, that it suddenly became like, well, maybe I can spend a little bit more time, being involved. But my father, he was in a lot of ways a catalyst for what we see here today. And every time I come to an event like this, I'm really quite overwhelmed and very proud of what he was able to kind of put down as a foundation for all of us to continue to build on and fight for, and keep trying to look for that vision of success and advancement. And a lot of the companies that are here, I don't know how many of the company owners are, are sitting in this audience, but I look at all of the products from hemp clothing to oils to CBDs. I look at the success of everything here in Colorado. Whether it's perfect or not is not the issue at the time. It's really how we can continue to push forward and push past the difficulties, because we've always had real extreme difficulties in how to educate ourselves forward. Because like myself and the way that I look at a lot of what happens here in America, we're kind of lazy. And, we look for a lot of other people to lead the way. But somewhere in the last 10 or 15 years, as the economic growth of what's been able to develop here in Colorado and California, people have started taking that leap of faith that if they put the energy forward, as difficult as circumstances might be at the time, that a great future could be built from what is happening. We feed off of each other's energies. We look toward one another for sometimes advice, leadership, and inspiration. And I'm always inspired looking at the innovation, both technology, both in production, and the faith that you all are taking in what is going to be the greatest evolution of industrial development, I hope, of the next 100 years, is really started right here in this room and in other groups like this that are going to kind of envelop this country, I hope, in spite of its roadblocks, in spite of its governments, in spite of the naysayers and those who refuse to educate. And I'm really proud at what I see, and I'm really excited and hopeful with the developments and the successes of companies like Alan's and his father's, and the developments in the companies that are here to show their dedication to this. And I wish you all great success. Don't forget that we are really a big family, and as much as we need to go forward, we need to look to one another to be stronger than we could ever be alone. So even if we're in competing businesses, even if we don't agree on every aspect of this, it's going to be us sticking together, forging this new future that is going to be the success of all of us. And looking forward to the next 10 years and the next 20 years, I'm really quite excited and happy to be a participant in the next decades to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. And let's have Richard Rose close this proceeding here.
All righty. Do we have slides? Someone just yell yes or no, please, and save us some time. Yes. Thank you, sir. That would be a yes.
Hemprella. That was one of the first products I ever saw in health food stores or Whole Foods. What year was that?
1994. I'll actually even show you pictures. Hey, there we go. So, there you go. I'm going to stand down here and talk. So I had been making tofu-rella, tofu, bright song tofu since 1980. If you want to pay your dues in the food industry, make tofu in the 80s in America. It made hemp foods easier. in '94. So did the first one to do shelled hemp seed, HempNut brand, 2 years before everybody else. First to do hemp protein powder. Today, that's 93% of Canadian hemp. Ran HIA for a while, Hemp Food Association, Medicinal Hemp Association, and the American Hemp Association. Wrote a couple books on HempNut. Introduced 150 foods, mostly soy foods, about 15 hemp foods, hemp products, a bunch of firsts, a bunch of awards, and a bunch of new tech. So this is sort of the, it's Canada Search is the most recent stuff, and NoCo we'll talk about later this weekend. So in '93, I was in the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies for basically tofu cheese, Tofu-rella. Introduced Vegan-rella, and we got vegetarian foods into the produce sections throughout the US and Canada, along with Eve's Veggie Cuisine, and we had a whole vegetarian section, healthy eating center in produce. So back then in '94, the food industry was basically like this. You have, really at the top, I think the biggest hemp food company at the time was Kathleen Chippy. Casey, are you here? Bummer.
Up in Netherlands.
Up in Netherlands,
Colorado.
One brown mouse. They had about 5 or 6 SKUs of chips. You got to remember in the '90s there were 4 companies doing hemp chips. There's none today. There was companies doing cookies and breads and all kinds of bars. But back then it was mostly just dry things like this, grocery items, bars, muesli, and chips. So '94, there was a trade show in Baltimore. This was in Inc. magazine. If you ever flew United to Baltimore, the only thing you're going to read is Inc. magazine, basically, because that's all I got. So all my buddies from the natural food industry saw that. They freak out, and they come look for me. Now, we were in booth number 1 of this large national trade show, and we were swamped because it was hemp foods. It was they saw that, so they're going to come trip with me about that, but I had something for them. I had these things. And we had Hemprella. It was a cheese, like the Tofu-rella, but it was made with hemp seed. And Hempe Burger, which was a tempeh burger with organic hemp seed. This product in the upper right was the first hemp product I did. It was hummus, and it bombed. However, it grandfathered CBD, stock, flowers, and stuff like that per DSHEA. The deadline for that was later in the year. Those 2 products got real professional real fast because people loved them, and they got national distribution in the US and Canada. We ended up with this one is the label, and it had an FDA legal health claim for heart disease and soy. Most of our other products had FDA legal structure function claims. To this day, it's only hemp foods with either of those. So then in '96, I started bringing over shelled hemp seed, called it HempNut, of course, duh, and from Germany, I'd been working on trying to shell, but they beat me to it, so I just started importing it, and I branded it as HempNut. We got HIA gave us awards. Hemp Times gave us the Pioneer Award. We had a hemp milk in '98, peanut butter, hemp seed oil, and HempNut was the soybean of the new millennium back then. And then ended up with blue corn chips, bars, cookies, cheese, margarine, and a whole little distribution package for distributors or entrepreneurs who wanted to sell in their hometown and to stores. We did tons of interesting marketing and advertising, kind of notorious. Good branding, we worked with a really good designer. Election, we all think Al Gore might have won in 2000, the election. So we go to CNN to see what happened. The lead story was, of course, the election, but the lead lifestyle story was a story on HempNut. So we got 3 million views that day. Ended up on this Roseanne show, 3 more million viewers learning about hemp foods for the first time. We got hundreds and hundreds of stories, hundreds of radio shows, national, local TV, just tons of stuff. We were doing banner ads all over the place, trying to get people to become distributors and affiliates and the like. Wrote a couple of books on it. These are other products from the time as well. A chocolate bar from Switzerland, made with shelled hemp seed. Cool Hemp up in Canada helped them with developing their product. Hemp and Java from Ruth Shamai, and this one in the lower right, Hofnuss, is basically a German translation of HempNut, and it's a whole bread that contains the shelled hemp seed out of Germany. You can see what happened with hemp in Canada. In 99 it pegged and then it died for quite a while. And in 2006 it overproduced again and died a while. I don't think we might be back up to 2006 now. Hemp import from Canada, 74% are HempNut. And it was such a good name, even Manitoba has been calling theirs hemp seed nut far longer than they've been calling it Hearts. Bronner wanted in on HempNut. You can see here. So if you want to, you have to remember, two trade associations thought it was so generic, they wanted the trademark, or they would oppose the trademark. So if you think cultural justice is appropriate, call it HempNut instead of Hearts. Thank you.
Thanks to all the panelists, and thank you for coming out this morning and listening to this presentation.